I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're talking about James Talarico. And as long as he's going to be in the election cycle, I'm probably going to be super annoyed with this guy. He reminds me a lot of Pete Buttigieg, but he keeps bringing up religion, and he is a progressive Christian who's trying to wear it in a nicer suit, and just says a lot of left-wing stuff that's like completely off, sometimes really stupid, but a lot of people want to really eat it up. But anyway, he went on Colbert show, or had an interview with Colbert, and they're complaining because they're like, this is the interview that the FCC, that Donald Trump didn't want you all to see. And the FCC said, you're running for office, you got to give equal time. And this is, by the way, a primary, so it's just equal time to other Democrats. And instead of giving them equal time, they just went ahead and did an interview, posted it online so people could just watch online, I guess to make people think that it aired. It didn't air, so they got no trouble with the FCC, but it posted online. So they're spinning this story to get like victimhood and be like, oh, Trump's really afraid of me and blah, 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 to try to, win that primary vote and be the candidate. But I'm really not fond of James Talarico. And then I saw this snippet of him going around and from the interview, and I just was like instantly like, this guy, this guy. So we're gonna talk about that, what they're doing, what he's pushing, and some other things as well. But we'll be talking about Talarico for a minute. But I think it's important because they're even CNN was doing a report that I haven't watched yet, but about Christian nationalism, and not just Christian nationalism, because there's some weirdos that are Christian nationalists that have kind of really red pill, misogynistic, and I don't know, even racist views and things like that, depending on how how far you dive down those sorts of tunnels and caves and to find those kinds of people. But they're like going off of like, oh, well, after Charlie Kirk was killed, there's all these people who said they're going to go to church and stuff. So they're going to rope in like a lot of just normal Christian beliefs into like, oh, well, this is bad because all these people mix their faith with their politics. When in reality, everybody basically mixes what they believe in with their political views, and we all argue about morality. Even if you don't believe in a God, people make moral arguments about their, political views and whatnot. And a lot of Christians can make arguments from a secular standpoint anyway, especially with the topic of abortion. But people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that. But if you don't want to mix religion and politics, stop trying to twist my religion so you can basically hollow it out and wear its skin so you can push your liberal ideas and then tell me that I'm doing it wrong. So that's what's really annoying about a lot of these people. And I will certainly give you examples. I'll certainly give you examples. But before we jump into everything, there's also some like some drama with like the online right after Randy Fine like said something about like Muslims and dogs, and it's not a great tweet, but there's context to the tweet, because someone with Zora Mamdani said something about dogs shouldn't be inside and things like that, and in America should become more Muslim and not, I guess, have a harsher opinion or view on dogs. And so Randy Fine said, if it's between the Muslims or the dogs, we're going to pick the dogs. But that was the tweet. And then under the tweet was like, here's some context to it. So Megyn Kelly got involved and someone called her out for calling him out, not calling out Candace. And then it just went nuts from there. So I don't know if we'll get to that thing today, but we'll at least start with this particular story with Talarico because they're really trying to spin this into a Trump is bad story when Colbert really could have just gave equal time to the people who Talarico was running against. But before we jump into everything, I encourage you guys to go to blacktunes.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a streamer, my site, all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merchants available at the store if you guys would like to do that. You guys can also check out different books that I've written. Like some of them are behind me in like Bigger, which is a children's picture book. I got more that I'm working on. My sister was calling me about different illustrations for this really cool book about a crab that we're working on. And just writing all the time. So looking forward to having some more stuff out. I plan to go to Motor City Comic Con. That's in Michigan, in Novi. I usually go. I couldn't go. I went last May. I couldn't go in November. Why? Because I went to Israel. I couldn't go because I went to Israel. Which I'm so glad that I went to Israel. um, so I'll be going to the May show. I'm glad that, you know, I got like back in after I had to like cancel my table. I'll also be going to the Ohio Big Book Con. That's in June. And I'm trying to see about other stuff as well. So got some busy, hopefully it can make it a busy year for that aspect of my life, but I'll let you guys know about that. Also, let me there is a event that my church is doing. So if anyone is from Michigan, we put on like a worship gala every year, and the money that we raise for it is for a pregnancy crisis center. So we take the money that we get from that event, and then we go. We pay for the expenses of the event, but then we go ahead and we use what's left to go pay for different diapers and just different supplies and stuff that the pregnancy crisis center needs. And so we buy that stuff, and then we also have a fundraiser. Well, a drive. We have a drive later, and so then we take all this stuff to the pregnancy crisis center. So that's what we've been doing for the past couple of years, and it's been really good, really successful. Even, you know, we have a very small church, very small congregation, but it's a nice event, and I'll be singing. My family was, well, different people in my church will be singing. Our praise team is like me, my sister, my brother, and this guy, brother Jonathan. So we'll be singing, and there will be some different acts, and that is coming up very quickly. I think it's going to be on Friday in March, and I think it's the 6th. So I'll post more about it, but I'm looking forward to that, getting my music and stuff together for it. But it's for a good cause, and I'm glad we've had like good, you know, turnouts and things like that. And it's at a you know, it's a nice time to get dressed up, have like a fancy dress, and the food is good too, and it's, you know, buffet style. So it's a nice time, nice cause. So before I get into that, what church where? The church is New Horizon Christian Center. But it's not at the church. It's gonna be at the Lafayette Grand in Pontiac. Like, it's like downtown. Hold on, let me now that I have mentioned it, let me just Jean, are you local? So I'm sorry, I'm looking for uh the information real quick. Oh, you're in Ann Arbor. That's like Ann Arbor is not terribly far. My my dad went to U of M for a little bit. I haven't been to Ann Arbor in a couple of years. I went to a book fair that they have out there. I didn't do it last year, I don't think, but look, I'm sorry, looking for the flyer. Sorry, looking for the flyer. While I'm looking for the flyer, I will say that we talked yesterday about the SAVE Act, and yesterday someone was like, this isn't a problem, or they said out of the past 40 years we've only had voter fraud like 40 times. And I don't know exactly where that is. Actually, asked ChatGPT. I'm like, where are they even getting this from? But I guess whatever stat it's from, it's like something about conviction. So, and they're like, it's misleading. I'm like, of course it's misleading. It's just not true. So I'm like, there was a Chinese national who voted in the Michigan election. And they're like, oh, we'll prove that, and then prove how, like, explain how it changed the result of the election. I'm like, I'm not claiming that voter fraud, as far as like illegal voting, changes the result of the election. Which, by the way, I mentioned this before. I've lost an election by 6 votes. So, you know, something like on a national scale, 10,000 votes is a small margin, but some elections can really come down to a few votes, and in my case 6 votes. But it wasn't even just the one. There was the Secretary of State looked more into it, and there ended up being 15 like non-citizens who ended up voting, and every single one of their votes ended up counting as much as mine. Now, did that change the result of the Michigan election? No. And I by the way, I also don't know who they voted for. I don't know who they voted for president, and like the Chinese national that happened at U of M. So that's impacting local stuff for Gene, who's in the comments. you know, I'm assuming they just didn't probably vote for president. Maybe they did. Maybe they voted for more. And those more local elections are going to be things that really might count by small margins. You never know. But the point, because once I started like listing like all these other examples, I'm like, you're saying it's only happened like 60 times, 68 times, and 15 of them were this past year in November. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And they said, well, why do you care? Like, it's still so minuscule. Why do you care? And I think it's such an odd question. Like, why do I care that non-citizens are voting and their vote counted as much as mine? Why do I care that I vote at all? It's my right as a US citizen. And if it's not a right that you're willing to protect, then what does it matter at all? Even if there isn't a number, even if it's not a significant enough number to change the results of the election, why would I not care? It's such a weird question to me. It's such a weird question. I didn't make the argument. And if you follow me for a while, I don't go into big like the election is stolen. Like, that's not my rhetoric or anything like that. It's just wrong. It's not right. I don't like it. It shouldn't be. They have no right to do it. It's really that simple. Why should a Chinese national be able to register to vote days before the election with his student ID? That's what happened. In Michigan, unfortunately, we got swept up in some bad ballot proposals that Republicans and stuff lost on, or the way that Republicans wanted some stuff to go, and it changed a couple of things about our elections, and the day that we vote, and how when you have to register and all that stuff. It's really too bad that happened. Okay. But and some people were saying, like the person I was arguing with, they're like, oh, and it's and the federal government, they're not supposed to have control. Like, what are you talking about? The Constitution like totally gives them control to set certain rules for federal elections. But the Save Act, America Act, is not transferring the power from the state to arrange the elections and things like that. As a matter of fact, some of the critics are upset because some of the directives that they're giving are a little too broad across like state lines, as far as how to rectify, like, if people, like, what if they quite don't have the right paperwork, and the government in the bill is just saying, like, the states have to figure out some kind of process, and all the critics are like, what what do you mean? Like, we need more direction than that. Like, I could, and I understand that, but at the same time, do you want states to have discretion or not? um so anyway, if the federal government wants to say, if you want to vote in a federal election, we just want to make sure that when you register to vote, that you have proven that you're a citizen. And I have not heard a single argument to why, I'm sorry, not a single argument, a single good one that makes any kind of sense, that would make me look at you and just be like, oh, you're reasonable. You're a reasonable person, totally reasonable. Because most of the time when people are spouting their nonsense, I'm just like, okay, are you stupid? Are you trolling me? Are you just that high off the sauce? It's not computing, like, why this is such a problem. And you can shrug your shoulders and say, well, it's not necessary because it only happens so many times. And there's only been 15 illegals that you know of that voted in the last Michigan election. Yeah, I don't want it to happen at all. One is too many. One is too many. If you cared about the integrity of my vote, one is too many. What? Because if it can happen the one time, if it happened the 15 times, why don't you think it could possibly happen more? Like, you found a flaw. Thank God the system has worked as well as it has. I'm kudos to that. But you found a flaw. It should not be the case that a Chinese national, at least in Michigan, should be able could register to vote days before the election and then vote in an election that ends up impacting Gene and me and other people. I don't like it. Okay? I'm going to, I did find the flyer, by the way, for this event. I'm going to share it in a link to the church flyer. And oh, you know what? Maybe I will. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably like, what is happening? Because you guys can't all see me interact with everybody, but there's people on Facebook watching, there's people on YouTube watching. Every blue moon, someone will pop in and on Twitch and leave a comment, like we're having a one-on-one conversation. So that's the information. I don't know if you guys can click that, actually. Okay. I guess on Facebook you should be able to. I don't know if you can on YouTube. But you should be able to click it on Facebook. The church is New Horizon Christian Center. So that's the church. You should be able to find it on Facebook. But yeah, there's a link. There you go. Thank you for asking. It'll be a fun night. Glad I mentioned it. So Um, yeah, so I just think even the comment that I see people continuously making about the women thing. I saw something really dumb today. As a matter of fact, I tweeted about it. Um, let me. Someone named Barbara Comstock. Okay, let me. Now, I don't think this is maybe a great section of this interview with Chip Roy. So he was asked about this bill, and so he's like, "There's even you can do sign an affidavit, if you have an issue, if you have some kind of problem." And so she says, "No, actually, Chip Roy is admitting that married women are going to be required to take extra steps to register to vote that are not required of men, married or single. Married women will be unequal in this bill and have extra burdens to register to vote. Oh, you will let us sign an affidavit that we aren't that we aren't lying?" Okay, so the affidavit, and the affidavit thing is actually a pretty interesting thing, because I would think that some Republicans wouldn't even like that. If you're all like all extra staunch, like, yeah, you have to show this identification to register to vote. If you don't have all your stuff together for some reason, you can sign that and be like, I, under the penalty of perjury, like, am who I say that I am, and people can accept that and kind of go from there. um, which, by the way, you can actually do at the voting polls. I don't know if it's every voting poll, but you can like do that in Michigan. There is like a petition going around. I don't know if that changes anything about that, but um, there are places where you're supposed to have ID, and if you don't have ID, there's some kind of remedy and some kind of emergency, I suppose, if you don't have it and you still want to vote. So in this situation, if you have all your stuff together and you have to register, you still have some kind of remedy if you don't actually have the documents. So if you're a real stickler about this stuff, you might be like, hey, there's a workaround. But if you're really afraid, there's like, hey, there is a workaround. But Barbara here, when I read this, I'm, I feel like most times I'm very patient about this stuff, but sometimes when I feel like the stupidity just keeps bubbling and bubbling and bubbling, and it reaches like, I don't know, it starts spilling over or it reaches critical mass. I start getting, I don't know, losing the patience, and I'm a bit frustrated. I'm just like, you weak loser women. Like, what is wrong with you? How can you be this stupid or just dishonest? And it's disgusting. And so if the whole, you're a woman, you need to take the extra steps. Oh, this is so mean to women, and it's steps that women have to take, and not even men, and blah blah blah. It's unequal. You're treating women like it's so dumb. First of all, everyone gets the same equality here. Show your birth certificate when you register to vote, okay? And it's not vote on the day. It's when you register to vote to prove your citizenship. If you want to vote in a federal election, it makes so much sense to prove who you are. It doesn't have to be a birth certificate. You can bring your passport, because if you have a passport, you've somehow proven that that you're a citizen, right? So you could do that, and there's naturalization papers and stuff that you can bring or whatever, but you got to bring some kind of like evidence. The real ID will also work if it indicates that your citizenship is verified, like on it, and that, I guess that's actually just in a few states. So very likely that you would have to bring your birth certificate when you register to vote. Okay. That's plain across the board, okay, for everybody. So you're a man, you're a woman, period, it's equal. If you choose to get married, and many people do, wonderful institution marriages, if you choose to get married, you can choose to still not have your name changed. You can still keep your name. That is an option. Men keep their name. Sometimes men change their name. Sometimes women don't change their name. But if you want to change your name, and you start having to change your documents and all kind of different stuff. That's just a reality of deciding to join together with this person, and you're not legally the same person, but you were changing your name legally to just make it more legit. And you're going to have a marriage license and maybe some, my mom for a long time actually had never like took the steps to change her name. And I guess once my dad realized, he's like, what? And so I don't think she did it until my sister, who got married, who actually did not change her name. People still will call her like her last name, her maiden name, and her husband's last name, but she still has Bar on there, and people still refer to her as Bar. She has not changed her name, and I don't think she plans on doing it. But I think when she got married, and she got married like 11 years ago, maybe 12, because her son's gonna be, maybe it's like 12, because her son's gonna be 11 this year. So I think when she got married and we were having that kind of conversation, my mom, kind of realized that she never got her stuff changed. So then they decided to go ahead and change it. But you can have these documents to just prove that you change your name. Now, if you are a man and you change your name for some reason and it doesn't match your birth certificate or something like that, and you have documents that prove that you have the name change, you may need to do that too. But you know what? It may be the case that you won't even have to bring those documents. I was reading through a thread and someone was talking about when you get a passport, you have to have all these documents about your name change if you're a woman and stuff. And a lot of women in the comments was like, they didn't want all that. They're like, I had my ID, my birth certificate, my passport photo, and that's what I had. And some people were like, no, I need to have my documents. Sometimes it is like at what they're going to take and accept is going to be at the discretion, not only what your state might decide in the situation, but also like what the agent decides. And I would have liked some more clarity. Like when I got my passport, I was not positive. It wasn't like worded great for me when I was trying to figure out where they're going to accept my passport that had expired. So I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, are they going to take this or not? Because it's really old. Like I'm clearly the same person. My face is very much still the same, but the information is the same. I haven't had a name change, anything like that. But I didn't know. So I started getting nervous, and that's when I decided to go get my birth certificate. And then I found that my dad lost it. So that's why I had to go to the county and get my birth certificate the day of my appointment. Very easy to get your birth certificate. So people going out there flipping out like, I don't know, women are second-class citizens because you got married and changed your name and you have a document. Like, is it really that much of a hassle to bring an extra piece of paper? Oh, well, you shouldn't have to do it. Okay, don't change your name. Okay. Just sign the affidavit. Because people could probably figure out that you're that person. But there is a chance that you don't have the same name and someone might want to take your identity. So there's just, if you have your marriage license, it just kind of makes sense. Don't you want them to make sure you are who you say that you are? To make sure that someone doesn't just kind of take your business? I had to renew my business in the state of Michigan, and they changed over their program and stuff. So everybody like had to, because my sister was trying to log into her renewal. I'm sorry, we haven't gotten to the Talarico thing. Yeah, but we'll obviously get to it. So she tried to log in, and she couldn't log in. Her passwords and everything weren't working. So she had to contact the state of Michigan, like in the help desk, and say, hey, it's not working. They're like, oh, we changed over our system. Nobody's passwords work. And so she's like, okay, well, if I can't log into my stuff, how am I going to renew my business? And they're like, oh, just find the business and then claim it. So she got a new password, logged in, searched for her business, claimed it, and then to double check it was yours. This is the state of Michigan, by the way. You just had to like put in the start date and the number. And you didn't need some kind of secret document in your house that you had printed out somewhere to figure out what the start date and the number was, because when you search the ID number, it just pops up. So she's like, anybody could just claim your stuff. And so sure enough, I went through the same process. And it was like, boop, claim. And I'm like, it just seems like there should be more barriers than this. It just kind of seems like there should be more. So anyway, so I know sometimes things can feel like an inconvenience to some of us, but it also just helps our personal peace of mind and security. Okay. Wouldn't it be the worst thing if you went somewhere and you found out that someone voted under your name, which sometimes that has happened to some people. I'm not saying it happens in mass, but I'm saying it has happened. So I feel good when I go to a polling place and they check to make sure to see who I am. And by the way, when you go to conventions, whether it's Republican or Democrat, you bring your ID and they check them before they give you the credentials. And I've been the person like at the credential desk being like, I need to see your ID. Even people who I know and they know that I know them, I'm like, let me see your ID. Because that's my job. Because it's important. Anyway. Let's go ahead and talk about what's going on with Mr. Talarico. So Mr. Talarico started sharing something saying like, oh, Trump doesn't want people to see this interview. So let me show you the tweet. Mr. Talarico. So Talarico is running for Senate in Texas. And we've had quite a few conversations about Mr. Talarico because he says the dumbest theological stuff and is trying to reinvent sort of political Christianity and reclaim it. And even in his website, last time I checked anyway, it said, let's flip some tables. So he's like doing that full speed ahead. It goes on different podcasts to talk about, how Christians who make a thing about abortion and homosexuality have got it wrong. We're just supposed to like love our neighbor. And to his credit, he actually did say something about loving God, but most of the time progressives only mention about the loving the neighbor part. But he said that the interview Donald Trump didn't want you to see. The FCC refused to air my interview with Steven Colbert. Trump is worried we're about to flip Texas. Now, I don't think Trump is worried that they're going to flip Texas. I'm sure whoever wins the primary is going to get big money in donations, that he will get big money in donations. Oh my gosh, do you guys remember Beto O'Rourke got so much money when he was running against Ted Cruz? It was insane, but he still lost. And he went like extreme as you could go on a lot of different issues to get a lot of attention and get a lot of money from around the country. And Talarico is, doing the same thing. I don't know that he actually expects that he's going to be able to win Texas, but maybe he's trying to get his name out there to seek higher office. He disturbs me. I guess I not just irk, but I just kind of I think people like him are snakes, and I just would like him to be sort of stopped in his tracks. But I don't know if he's gonna beat Miss Crockett in a primary, or if she's gonna, I don't know. But Trump did not say, hey, I don't want Talarico specifically to not go on the Colbert Show. Let's make sure the FCC thwarts those plans. So what actually did happen? So the FCC has different rules about equal time. And so CBS didn't actually want, and people are like, Barry Weiss is the one responsible. She's over the news. She's not over the entire network. FYI. So there's a rule that if people are running for office, you have to, and it's like over like, broadcasting. It's different if it's like, cable or something like that, but broadcast, you have to give equal time to different candidates. Now, a lot of people are like, Crockett's been on Colbert show a couple times. This isn't fair. This isn't right. And they're just being selective right now. She's in Congress. She has been there as a congresswoman. That's why she's been on the show. Him going as a candidate for Senate, there are other Democrats in the primary running for Senate. So Colbert had an option. He had a choice. He could give equal time to the people who are running against Talarico. And they didn't want to do that. I guess he didn't want to do it. So instead of just airing it and him coming on the show, they filmed the broadcast. They filmed an interview and they put it online, and people get to watch it online, which is not like Colbert has a ton of viewers anyway, but it probably would have just got more eyes online anyway. So people get to go online and watch it. And because Talarico is pushing, and I'm sure fundraising off of, the FCC doesn't want, this out there. Trump is trying to stop me. Trump is afraid we're going to flip Texas. I worked in politics. I've sent out emails. I've, been part of like the machine. Like it's a tactic, obviously, to raise money. And I understand candidates need to raise money, but obviously you're telling stories, and that is not very moral. As you're trying to paint yourself with all this Christian ethic stuff. So there's a Reuters article that I read. Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, there's a broadcast rule, and it's very simple, and he could have had other people on, but they just want to make it seem like he's the one to beat. He's the one that Trump is afraid of. Just like a lot of people will invoke AOC's name and the squad's name, even if they're not in those districts, even if they're not going to run against them, people will mention them because they're sore thumbs, I guess, and they're a lot of focus on the right. And so we're like, we're going to get in Congress, we're going to defeat people like the squad and blah blah blah. And if you ran in like a district against Rashida Tlaib, even if you couldn't win because it's so overwhelmingly Democrat, you would still get like a ton of donations and stuff. And I've seen that like happen, and not just really from Michigan, for people all over the country. So Republicans will invoke some of the names of like very popular Democrats and to drive attention to them and get money. And that's what Talarico is doing. Trump is so scared of me. We're going to flip text. We're going to all this different stuff to try to get donations and hype around him. And if people feel like you have a chance, people are willing to give more to you. Like when I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, we do, well, I guess not just when I worked at there, but they have every 2 years they do a conference, and they have all these people come to the Mackinac Island. And in 2015, it was like a free-for-all as far as people running for president. So we had a ton of Republican candidates there, including like Rubio was there. You had Rand Paul was there, and you had the governor of Ohio was there, who I was not fond of, but and Trump did not come. And I guess when they tried to kind of invite Trump to the island, one of his people was just like, there's no cars, you got to ride in carriages. And I guess they kind of thought that was weird. I'm just like, why don't they pass off the information? I don't know if they passed off the information and Trump was also like, that's weird, that's dumb, I'm not going there. But I don't know. I don't think he's ever been to the island since that time. I mean, there's been big people like from his admin or circle who've gone there afterwards to kind of represent, but I'm not sure if I can't remember if he's gone there. But I don't know. I've seen him on. I'm like, I think he'd like to come. Like, I've seen him on Apprentice, and it's not like they don't have carriages and all kind of stuff in New York. Like, I just assumed he would probably like it, but I don't know. His team seemed to kind of like that's weird. But no, he didn't come. But we had a ton of Republicans who ended up coming. So anyway, there was like a lot of people who registered but did not show up for a while. We're like, why do we have all these credentials? Who are all these people who didn't show up? So Rand Paul, God bless him. I do like Rand Paul. But he had all these kids that came like on the last day, on the Sunday. And Sunday is when they do the straw poll. And the purpose of winning the straw poll, like, why wouldn't you want to win the straw poll? You get to go to your people after you win it and say, like, hey, I won the straw poll. I have a chance to win in this primary in Michigan. I have a chance to end up winning as president. You know, you could go to your big donors, maybe your small donors or whatever, and you try to build off that momentum to say, hey, I'm your person, support me. That's how it works. Just a little behind the curtain stuff. And so they brought in a bunch of kids and because they were registered, they got to vote in the straw poll. You know, it's not like an online thing. You were there at the event, and, you know, they gauge the interest of the actual audience. And these are like big political people who usually come. But when you flood it with kids that are going to support you, it's, you know, you tilted it in your favor. So people want to get support early on, and they want to make it look like if Trump is worried about him and not Ms. Crockett, then the Democrats are like, okay, well, this is our guy because this is who Trump hates the most. So that's what those tactics are about. Brian Stelter also, not that I like Brian Stelter, but he also reported from CBS, The Late Show was not prohibited by CBS from broadcasting the interview with Rep. James Talarico. The show was provided legal guidance that the broadcast could trigger the FCC equal time rule for two other candidates, including Rep. Jasmine Crockett, and presented other options for the equal time for other candidates could be fulfilled. The Late Show decided to present the interview through its YouTube channel with on-air promotion on the broadcast rather than potentially providing the equal time options. So it just kind of seemed like they wanted to get around it, and they're like, we're going to play this little game here. So it's smart. It's smart. It's slimy. Are you upset? I guess Brian Stelter maybe reported something before that wasn't true, and people are like, I saw Mike Cernovich say under his post, are you upset that you were used to lie? I didn't see his earlier tweet, so he must have spread some misinformation. So anyway, let's go ahead and watch a snippet here of Mr. Talarico. Now, to remind you, Mr. Talarico, he's gotten some really big interviews. He went on Joe Rogan's podcast and tried to make the claim, you know, he complained about Christians always caring about, you know, homosexuality and abortion, and those aren't even in there. He's like, and you could make a case from the Bible to be pro-choice. And Joe Rogan asked the obvious question, like, how can you make an argument about being pro-choice from the Bible? And Talarico brings up that the angel asked Mary for permission, and so choice is important, and said like other crazy things. I think he might have brought up he didn't bring up Numbers 5. He brought up life starts at first breath, and maybe something else. So life starts at first breath. Really stupid. That's not what it says. It says God breathed the breath of life into Adam. It became a living soul. Of course, he was the first created being, and that it, you know, there was a natural sort of process of procreation that happens with him and Eve after that event. And even if we were going to say like, no, you need the breath, okay, when a mother breathes in, you know, that oxygen is going to go to her baby, the oxygen and the nutrients through the blood. It's going to go, sent to all that stuff, and the baby's like actually pumps its own blood throughout its body, and you're going to breathe out like carbon dioxide for the baby. Like it's a whole process. The baby is alive. The baby is the stuff that's keeping you alive is also keeping your baby alive. So it doesn't make sense that you think that the baby doesn't literally live until it exits the womb. That's really stupid. And if you do actually believe that, it's very unscientific if that's what you actually believe. I do, and if it is what you believe and you're taking that moral position, because if it's not alive, then obviously why shouldn't you be able to kill it? That means you don't actually think it's alive until after it's out of the womb and takes its first gasp of air with its lungs, which means if, a drunk driver hits you and you're, I don't know, let's say hours before your due date, to quote Hillary Clinton, then the drunk driver didn't kill your baby because your baby wasn't alive. Do you actually believe that? So I want Allie Beth Stuckey. I mean, I would talk to him myself, have a little interview with him. I would love for Allie Beth Stuckey to sit across from Mr. Talarico and have these conversations. So he said that the Mary thing is crazy. By the way, the angel didn't actually ask. The angel said what was going to happen, and she's like, "Praise the Lord," But it still doesn't make sense, because having the choice to whether you're going to be impregnated is still different than later deciding to kill the child. So that logic doesn't follow either. So that was really frustrating. He's also the guy who had the interview with Ezra, I think it was Ezra Klein, and talked about like, oh, he fought against having the 10 Commandments in schools, and said, why do they want the 10 Commandments there, but they don't want to have, the love of money is the root of all evil in the boardrooms. And so we talked about that at the time. I'm like, that's not even what the scripture says, which is funny because the scripture is actually warning about people like him, I would say, who preach false doctrine for their own benefit. That's what that scripture is actually talking about. You got to read the whole thing, sir, not just a verse. And then he went on to say, like, really a lot of other dumb things, like, why don't we have thou shalt not judge in the courtroom? So really, really dumb stuff that he keeps using with scripture. Not fond of this guy at all. Not fond of him at all. But I have a little snippet that I shall share here with you guys. Sorry, it's loading.
Well, for 50 years, the religious right, a political movement, that is the perfect description for it. They then still Christians. Important issues were abortion and gay marriage. Two issues that aren't mentioned in the Bible, two issues that Jesus never talked about. And every one of our fellow believers, how we're going to be judged and how we're going to be saved. By feeding the hungry, by healing the sick, going to church, nothing about voting Republican. What? It was all about how you treat other people. Did y'all
hear him say, like, he didn't say anything about going to church? It's about how you treat people. That's all it is. That's all you need to know. There's obviously more to it than that. But when he says Matthew 25, I'm just pretty sure he's talking about the tail end of the chapter and not all the stuff about need to get ready, be ready for Jesus. I'm sure it's not all that stuff, and he's just talking about the take care of the stranger, taking care of the stranger, and you did not feed me, you did not clothe me. But we'll get to that. I'll go ahead and read that.
I've said before, don't tell me
he likes to lie and take scriptures out of context. So that's how I guess he treats other people, and that shows you how he cares about people.
And I think in our faith, we've got to get back to those fundamentals. My granddad was a Baptist preacher in South Texas. And when I was little, he told me that Christianity is a simple religion, not an easy religion, he would always clarify, but a simple religion because Jesus gave us 2 commandments, love God and love neighbor. And there was no exception to that second commandment. Love thy neighbor regardless of race or gender or sexual orientation or immigration status or religious separation of church and state in the state capital in Texas, because
so when you talk about the gospel and you don't actually have the gospel, I think that's a problem. He makes it, at least by this clip, makes it seem like it's just you have a works-based salvation. What about repentance? What about the necessary belief in Jesus Christ? He said on another podcast, the Ezra, I believe might not have been Ezra Klein. I know what he looks like. I just can't think of that is his name. But like they asked, like, do you believe that, in the basically that Christianity is the right way? And he basically said that other religions are also point to the truth, and he's learned like things from Islam and other stuff like that. And I'm just like, Islam contradicts the core principle, the core foundations of the gospel. If you don't believe that Jesus got it and died on the cross for the debt of our sins, like, we don't have a religion. So either we are right or they're right. We can't both be right. So you can say, I respect people's rights to exercise, their religious liberties, and that they can have different faiths. And, I encourage people to go on a journey to the truth. But if you do find the truth, you will find that truth is Jesus. And that's the end of it, period. So, this guy saying, oh, you didn't say anything about going to church. You just got to love your neighbor and all this stuff. As far as the statement about Jesus gave us 2 commandments, when Jesus was asked, like, what's the greatest commandment? And remember, he was talking to people, being harassed by people who are trying to trip him up constantly. What's actually really interesting about Jesus whittling the 10 commandments really down to 2 is that loving God covers most of the, and loving your neighbor covers the rest. Like, loving God with all your heart, your mind, your soul covers, like, honoring him and not coveting your neighbor's stuff and killing. And that covers, like, loving your neighbor. It's like he summed it all up in 2 things. So that's the neat thing about that. But he does repeat the commandments. So it's not like there's no moral law and we're just supposed to go off of feels and vibes as far as how we love our neighbor. But when the Bible talks about love, it talks about being patient. It talks about being kind. But does it not talk about that you're not supposed to rejoice in wrongdoing? So when you're out here saying, believing that the Bible doesn't say anything about abortion or anything about homosexuality, well, he said gay marriage. I've seen progressive pastors do like skits on TikTok, and they're just kind of going through their Bible, like me not finding any scriptures about abortion. And so I thought about doing the same thing and going like me not finding any scriptures about running you over with my car. Now, if I run you over with my car and I kill you, and it's a premeditated homicide, like I meant to do it, and there's malice involved, that we call that murder, would we not? Did I not take the life of an image bearer of God on purpose? So are there things in the scriptures that we can gather and be like, oh, you know what? Bible says thou shalt not murder. That's interesting. Can we not figure out that abortion is bad? We can't figure that out? Because the Bible doesn't say everything about every single issue. Like, again, the Bible does not say, Christina, thou shalt not run over someone with your car. It doesn't say that. That doesn't mean it's okay for me to do it. And I can sure enough figure out based on the word and just some common sense that I'm not supposed to do that, and Jesus would not approve. I can figure that out pretty easily. We can very much easily make the case that the Bible is against abortion. As a matter of fact, I got a book. Of course, God's blatantly against abortion. You can clearly figure that out from the scriptures. If we just had a society that followed the Christian ethic about sexuality, we wouldn't have a problem with abortion, because the people who get pregnant and have abortions, I think it's like 80% of them are not married. So that would cut down on a lot of them right there. A lot of them. And by the way, most women who have abortions are between the age 20 to 40. It's not like a 15-year-old made an oopsie baby or was sexually assaulted. That's not the majority of the cases, nowhere near that. So if we just followed a more Christian ethic about sexuality, we would not have this as a monumental issue today. If people got married, then had their babies, and committed to stay with one another, we wouldn't have these problems. We wouldn't. Not induced abortions, not all this, oh gosh, let me take this pill. We wouldn't. We would not. So it's not only the case, I believe, that abortion is obviously wrong. It's also the case that as a Christian, you should not get to the point where that would even be a fathomable thing. I can understand like issues where there's some kind of health issue and you have to like induce a labor or something like that in your health. But that's a different ethic than, I don't feel like I can afford it right now, and it'll make the financial burden really, really difficult. Well, where's your help supposed to come from? Take no thought for your life, like what you're going to put on, what you're going to drink, all that stuff. I'm not saying that those things aren't important, but when you weigh that against a life, do you really think it's a Christian ethic to sacrifice that child on the altar of self so you can not be financially, unstable? You can figure it out. You can get resources. You can help, go to the church, go to your community, go to pregnancy crisis centers like the one we're supporting. But and then for people who are like, well, I don't want the baby to have a hard life. That's not to just believe that it's okay to kill people to prevent suffering. Where in the Bible is the idea that you are going to be prevented from suffering? That's not the Christian ethic. While you're going through, you can have a peace that passeth all understanding, that God can be your joy, that God can be your peace, that God can sustain you. And you know what? It's interesting. I was watching a TikTok and someone was pointing out when John the Baptist was in prison, his disciples came to Jesus to like check him out and be like, hey, stuff's going on. Like, what's up? And Jesus like, tell John that the blind see and the lepers are cleansed and the poor receive the good news. He didn't say, I'm coming with bags of cash. He said they received the good news. I'm not saying that God can't hook you up with a good business idea, bless you financially, that you're not, and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm saying, but that's not where we're supposed to be content at. And people who have this idea that it's merciful to take a life, the life of an image bearer of God, to spare them a life of suffering, as opposed to thinking about, even though they will have some challenges like all humans do, that we will still find a way to glorify our Creator with the life that was given to us. If you want to wipe that all out because you think you know better than God, you're more merciful than God, you're not. You're not. And you're not honoring God with all your heart and your mind. How are you honoring God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and you're going to go kill an image bearer of God? How are you loving your neighbor? Why is it the preborn your neighbor? That's like the whole argument for the abolitionist movement. By the way, there was also an argument for the abolitionist movement back in the day, Black History Month, like that was part of their argument. Your child, why are they not qualified as your neighbor that you are supposed to love as someone who's also loved by God? Why? This guy is so annoying. And he just stands there smiling, and Colbert's like, oh, I love you that you're reclaiming Christianity. You're showing everybody what you should really be like as a Christian. He thinks it's okay to murder babies. Have you ever read the Old Testament? That's something that brings judgment upon the land. That's not Christian. He is right, though, about, he said gay marriage, like they're focused on gay marriage. The Bible doesn't say anything about it. You're right. The Bible does not say anything about gay marriage. As Michael Knowles would point out, he's like, gay marriage doesn't exist. Michael Knowles went on Jubilee, and that was probably one of the best Jubilee episodes. Ali Stuckey, Beth Stuckey, did a really good job too, but and she also talked about like marriage and the perspective. But I think Michael Knowles was probably one of the most one-sided, just like spanking sort of stuff that I've seen. And he just does this so kind of suave and with a smile. And excuse me, with an air of like intellectual intelligence, intellectual sophistication, and while still being nice, I guess. So one of his arguments is there is no such thing as gay marriage. He's like, yes, we acknowledge that people get married, or have some kind of union together, and they say that it's marriage, but as far as like what the institution is supposed to be, no. And if you want to talk about what Jesus talked about, there's lots of things that Jesus didn't talk about, and his focus was being the lamb that was slain. And he did teach a lot of things, and a lot of things that we don't know about because not everything is recorded. But the central important message of the gospel is laid out. And it's not just about the books of the gospels. There's what follows afterwards. And of course, there's the Old Testament, which Jesus and the disciples also very much revered, that we're just not going to throw out. But Jesus did reference back, when he talked about marriage, he referenced back to Genesis about a man and a woman. And he also talked about how there's no good, basically, reason outside of like, that people get divorced because their hearts are hard. But he mentioned sexual immorality. And if you go to the law codes about sexual immorality, you'll find out stuff. You'll go back and reference homosexuality, whether you're going to Leviticus or you're reading in the New Testament. There was a friend of mine that I was following, and one of his videos popped up, and he was a young man. He says he's Christian and he's gay, and he tried to debunk some Christian talking about like passages about homosexuality, and he said something about the Bible not saying anything about female same sex, and I'm like, that's not even true. That's not true. I know people will say, well, homosexuality wasn't even in the Bible until 19 some year. Okay, but what's described there is there, and people will say, no, it's about dominant and passive relationships. I'm like, okay, well, then why are both punished? Then, you know, it doesn't make sense. It's the action of it, and you cannot like that. You can be watching and have same-sex attraction. It doesn't right now to listen to me talk. It doesn't change what it says, and you cannot like it. But he's correct. It doesn't say anything about gay marriage. It certainly doesn't affirm it, and it certainly doesn't describe marriage as anything other than man and woman. So he's right about that, but not for the wrong reasons. And by the way, back to the abortion thing. Early church history believes that abortion is murder. And Catholic Answers, which I do reference early church father history and stuff in my book. Of course, God's blatantly against abortion, but Trent Horn manages Catholic Answers. And I'm not Catholic, by the way. I just know that he had a bunch of quotes from early church history. Like the Didache and Letters of Barnabas. Yeah. This is a good resource page. The second commandment of the teaching, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not seduce boys, you shall not commit fornication, you shall not steal, you shall not practice magic, you shall not use potions, you shall not procure an abortion nor destroy a newborn child. So that's the Didache. Letters to Barnabas, thou shalt not slay the child by procuring abortion, nor again shalt thou destroy it after it is born. So, I mean, Didache, that's 70 AD. Letters to Barnabas is 74 AD. So there's just one biblical scholar. His name is Dan McKellen. I've seen him do a lot of videos on abortion, and I've never seen him reference like early church history, and he always tries to pretend like it's some kind of modern political concoction of the church to be against abortion, and it's just not true. Like you do see like a political ramping up like in recent time, but that, I mean, it's obviously always been the church position of like the Catholic Church and stuff like that. But Pacos of Peter, and near that place I saw another straight place, and there sat a woman over against them, many children who were born to them out of due time sat crying, and there came forth from them rays of fire and smote the woman in the eyes, and these were the accursed who conceived and caused abortion. Here's another. What man of sound mind therefore will affirm, while such is our character, that we are murderers, when we say that those women who use drugs to bring on abortion commit murder, and will have to give an account to God for the abortion? On what principle should we commit murder? For it does not belong to the same person to regard the very fetus in the womb as a created being, and therefore an object of God's care. And when it has passed into life, to kill it, and not to expose an infant, because those who expose them are chargeable with child murder. And on the other hand, when it has been reared, to destroy it. Then you got Tertullian. In our case, a murder being once and for all forbidden, we may not destroy even the fetus in the womb, while as yet the human being derives blood from the mother's parts of the body for its sustenance. To hinder a birth is merely a speedier man killing, nor does it matter whether you take away a life that is born or destroy one that is coming to birth. That is a man which is going to be one. You have the fruit already in its seed. So that's 197. So there's like early church history here with believing that abortion is murder. It is. There's a lot of Catholic organizations, interestingly enough, that will say that it's killing a child, but the women aren't culpable for murder. Trent Horn actually makes that case too. So that's fascinating. I don't really agree with that opinion. I was persuaded at one time. I don't know if like not strongly persuaded, but like when Donald Trump was like, when they asked him in like 2015, 2016 about women who have abortion, what should happen to them? Should they go to jail? And he's like, yeah. And then there was like outrage and panic. So he had to like reassess his answer, because to him, I guess that made sense. Like if abortion is wrong and kills a baby and it becomes illegal and you still kill a baby, why wouldn't you go to jail? So I mean, I guess it's like common sense thinking, and that was kind of what I had thought about it. And I remember someone in the office was like, this is how we know Donald Trump isn't actually pro-life, because we don't want to hurt the women. And I just didn't know what to say, because I'm like, is something wrong with me? Like, to me, that just seemed like a common sense opinion to me. So I had to think kind of deeper on it and research. I'm like, why are they saying it's not murder? And so I guess the first thing I saw that kind of made sense was Ben Shapiro. He was asked during a Q&A or whatever about it being murder, and he said that women don't have the necessary mens rea. And I'm like, I guess that makes sense. And so I kind of let Ben persuade me, but I believe Ben is wrong on this now. So I wonder if he still kind of holds the same opinion, because I saw some abolitionists at AmFest talk to Knowles and some other people, and Knowles didn't seem to he didn't really push back against that opinion. And the guy from the Blaze was like, you guys are right, just don't be jerks, because sometimes abolitionists can be kind of prickly. And Matt Walsh was totally like, yes, you should go to jail if you kill a baby, like what? So but it's really a lot of big pro-life organizations like Equal Rights Institute. And I love Emily who works there. I just don't think some of those positions are make sense. And Lila Rose, which Lila Rose is so sweet. But Kristen Hawkins, who's the head of Students for Life, she was confronted by some abolitionists, and she like crashed out is maybe the right word. And she does not make a good argument for her position at all. And what's funny is sometimes when abolitionists talk to pro-lifers about this issue, the more the pro-lifer talks, the more pro-choice they actually sound. And so I haven't broken down that particular video with some of the people from Abolitionist Rising and Kristen Hawkins, but it's bizarre. It's bizarre. Like, she even starts bringing up scripture and kind of using it like a pro-choicer would. It's very, very, very odd. Anyway, I recommend you guys I guess kind of know a little bit about that in case you run into someone like Talarico. But yeah, he's I said I'd go over Matthew 25 a bit. I'll just speed read it, because when he's talking about Matthew 25, I'm pretty sure he's just talking about the segment that's at the bottom, about the final judgment. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered, all the nations, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on the right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me." So that's what they're all talking about. Like, you got to welcome the stranger. You got to do all this kind of stuff. And so it says, "I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came." Then the righteous will answer him saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink?" And it says, "And when did you see a stranger and welcome you, and or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it one to the least of these my brothers, you did it to me." Then he will say to those of his left, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger and you did not welcome me, naked and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison and you did not visit me." Then they also will answer saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or stranger or naked and sick in prison and did not minister to you?" Then he will answer them saying, "Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So there's an argument for inclusion, I guess, and that they're just talking about anybody who is a stranger and all this other kind of different stuff. And there's also the argument that Jesus mentions, "My brothers, you did it to me." And my brothers would mean that this isn't a broad thing for everybody, but he is talking about taking care of actual brethren in Christ. But even if we say that it's the broad everybody, because I still believe we're supposed to feed and take care of all kinds of folks anyway. The Democrats are trying to make their Christian sort of ethic these passages, but Christians on the right, it's not that we don't believe in those passages. It's just the government isn't supposed to do your Christianity. Like, you are supposed to be the hands of Jesus. You are the ones who are supposed to take your money and give it to people in need or go feed the sick. And you are the one who's supposed to take your time and, I don't know, go provide a Bible to a prisoner or something like that. And you're the one who are supposed to go overseas and help people who are needy in other countries, and not, just hold up bleep ICE signs when they illegally come here and impede law enforcement. That's not what you're supposed to do. Okay. Like Rand Paul is like, "The government should not force me to provide health care. I'm a professional, and that is if you want to force me to do that work, that is slavery, and that is not right." But him as a Christian can say, "I believe in providing," because he's like an eye doctor, "We're going to do surgeries and all sorts of different things for the people who are needy, because that is my Christian ethic, to care for those in need." That is your personal responsibility. I'm not saying the government can't do things, but outsourcing your Christianity is not Christian. And it's funny because all the time, like if we have a conversation about abortion and there's like a pro-choice Christian, quote unquote, or people who don't want to be involved with that issue, they'll be like, "Oh, I don't think we're supposed to push our Christianity on people." But they want to use the government to outsource our Christianity when that's not supposed to be the case. That's not supposed to be the case. And he's like, I think the separation of church and state is really important. Okay, but are you going to try to use the Christian ethic to outsource your version of Christianity and make everybody pay for stuff that maybe they shouldn't have to be forced to pay for after you confiscate their money? So I think a lot of this rhetoric is just hypocrisy. But if you want to talk about Jesus and the gospel and the Bible and Christians and what we believe, if you're not going to stand 10 toes down on Jesus is the only way, then you don't need to talk about it. You don't need to just use Jesus as a political weapon, as a tool. Going back to the love of money, actually he said love of money, he said, is the root of all evil. That's how Talarico misquoted the passage. But if you actually read that whole chapter in Timothy, you have a warning about, hey, there are people who teach a different message. And if there's people teaching a different message, you need to stay away from them, stay clear of them. And people are motivated to teach a different kind of message because they want financial gain. They want financial gain. Talarico is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's got really bad doctrine, and he's out here really trying to shame Christians for what? Not wanting to kill babies. And that is a really important issue. But child sacrifice was a really big thing in the Old Testament too. God hates hands that shed innocent blood. Like, why wouldn't we care about that issue? Even if we weren't like preaching about the stuff from the pulpit or whatever, why wouldn't good, decent American people care about this? And a big reason why people really care about the homosexual issue in California, you may recall in 2008 when a ban passed, they passed a ban. But a lot of people did not want them to have to, like, even if you have the mindset, like, well, people can just do it in private and it doesn't have to affect everybody else. People were concerned about people trying to push it in schools and push it on their kids. And the vote for gay marriage side was like, no, we wouldn't push it on your kids. We wouldn't have it in schools. That's silly. It's not silly. We're far removed from 2008, almost 20 years later, and we know it's in the schools. Schools are fighting parents who want to opt out of this stuff, and it's beyond, hey, does this boy like a boy? Does this girl like a girl? It's beyond that. It's beyond the issue of you have 2 mommies or 3 daddies. It's beyond that. It's, hey, can a boy say he's a girl because he feels like it? Respect their pronouns. It's gone far beyond what people could even imagine when we talked about slippery slopes. Well, slippery slopes are real slick for a reason. The people who are real, they preached against it and stuff and still believed it was wrong. But you could make a libertarian argument of like, well, if people want to decide to do that, they can do it in their own home. But people, and by the way, they could still do it in their own home without it, reinventing marriage. They were concerned about the ripple effect on the rest of society and how they wanted to influence everybody else's kids. For all the people like, oh, I don't want to push my religion on people. Everybody wants to push their morality on you. Because these people want us to affirm them. They'll take you all the way to the Supreme Court because you won't bake them a cake. So, if you don't defend your religion, there's always sin that's lying at the door. The devil's always waiting. Adversary's always waiting. So if you're going to let him run all over you, don't be surprised when his team has run the field. Anyway, that's all I got to say today. That's plenty. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my site, all that stuff, so you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different stuff on my website, different merch. I actually made this shirt, My Money, My Business, for a pro-life shirt, because people would try to use people's tax dollars. And so they're like, it's not your business. I'm like, well, it's my money, isn't it? So it's my money. Why is it not my business? So that's originally why I made that shirt. But I got other pro-life, stuff as well. Like pro-choice men are sus for like Mr. Talarico. And I have also my book, Of Course God is Blatantly Against Abortion. If you guys want to check that out, that is available on Amazon. So you guys can pick that up. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you on tomorrow. God bless.